we are in rural Oregon. We face a number of unique challenges that the metro area doesn't face. Transportation is one, and another is workforce. We don't have a large population and population density to draw from. The other is what I call basic infrastructure needs, and we've talked about the fiber optic communication systems and just the backbones, is that is one of our barriers to economic development. We just do not have the capacity that is existing on the current systems out there to handle the demand that we're currently experiencing. And the other is electricity distribution. We have huge transmission lines running through our reservation, yet the substations do not service us. And so we have a problem in getting enough power off those big, powerful Bonneville transmission lines that run through our reservation, getting them to step it down to where we can utilize that power. So we kind of have utility, and I like the term utility, that's the way we view it, utility services issues and limitations. But I also want to talk a little bit about some of our successes that we've had, and one of those successes I view is a partnership that we have formed with the state of Oregon in trying to overcome some of these barriers. I've been around there quite a while, and one of the unique partnerships that I think really started was back in 2001 when Warm Springs, through Michael Mason, and we had a number of discussions with the state legislatures about creating what we called the Reservation Enterprise Zone. In Oregon, they have enterprise zones to encourage economic development. Well, we were looking at how do we encourage those same incentives or benefits to attract economic development in rural areas. And so what was created in the 2001 legislature was the Reservation Enterprise Zone program. And I view that as a tremendous success, and I'll explain a little bit more. Because when you look at economic development, one of the key things is risk and uncertainty. Those are the two components that developers really look at. How can I mitigate my risk, and how can I take uncertain situations and make them certain so that I can eliminate that question mark. And in working on the Reservation Enterprise Zone provided some incentives, but it was just one step of many. There's been several other key pieces of legislation that has gone through that has kind of helped knock down that uncertainty. One was, I refer to it as the Essential Governmental Services Bill. It was back in 2012. There was some legislation that went through that the tribes were very supportive of that exempted the tribes when we started building infrastructure. Of course, when we build that infrastructure on fee lands, it becomes taxable. And so here you have us trying to extend municipal type utility services out on fee lands, and we're paying Oregon property taxes, which cause an extra burden. And what the state of Oregon did was they said, if we locate property on fee lands that is providing governmental services, and it was broadly defined, those would be exempt from property taxes. So again, you take a barrier down and remove it. There is some issues still there. There are some components we would like to add. Two of the components that were omitted from utility services were communication services and electricity. And so we'd still like to follow up on that. One of the other things is whenever you're dealing with multiple sovereigns or multiple jurisdictions, the issue of taxation is always comes up. Who has what right to tax? Or if both jurisdictions have concurrent taxing jurisdiction, how does that work? And in the Reservation Enterprise Zone legislation, there is an Oregon income tax credit that the state allows for a dollar-for-dollar income tax credit for tribal taxes that are imposed on those businesses located within those zones. And when we started laying that out for people that were looking at doing development on reservations, they said, oh, that's like paying taxes to a foreign entity. And so, you know, Oregon offers a credit for that. And so that's the analogy they were kind of drawing, and it made sense to them. But what it really did was it provided some tax certainty. Another major piece of legislation that went through, and this was in 2015, it's often referred to as the Chehalis case, where the federal courts and federal law clarified what is taxable on trust land that is operated and owned by non-Indians or leased by non-Indians versus Indians. And it basically said that real property improvements are an integral part of the land and therefore are exempt. But what we found out in talking with developers was that was not sufficient. They wanted to know what was the state of Oregon's policy on that. And so the state legislature clarified and codified that into it. And so now we have removed uncertainty. Developers look at the state statute and they see what is the Oregon policy on this issue. And it's very clear and very helpful. So my real message today is that as a sovereign tribal nation, we really need to look outward. And we need to form those partnerships with the local governments, the counties, and the cities. But even more importantly, we need to look to the state of Oregon and build those bonds and say, what is it that's causing problems and how do we address those in the most expeditious manner that provides certainty to everybody? Thank you.